Hey everybody, welcome to another Blender Quick Tip. Today we're going to be talking about how to get really fast render times out of any computer, even if they're pretty weak. So we're going to be talking about an alternate way of rendering our scenes to make this process really fast. And it's called Viewport rendering. So normally, when you render something, you're going to use either Blender's internal renderer or Cycles. And these are great systems. I like using them a lot. But the problem is that when you work with a very high poly scene, right now I have over 1,000,000 faces on these subdivided monkey faces. If I try and render this frame out, just render the single image, it's going to sit here for a little while, it's going to think about it. This is fun. And there we go. So you can see it takes quite a bit of time to render out one frame. And if you're doing an animation that's high poly, you're animating at 24, 30, maybe even 60 of these frames for 1 second of animation. So you can see how this time adds up a lot. Now we can do this quicker without having to go into our render options with Blender Internal or Cycles at all. And it's actually right down here in the Viewport button. We have an option, a little camera, and a little kind of like scene clapper thingy. I forget the word right now, but if I just click this to render as image, it's done. Just like that. Much faster. And you can render animations at this speed as well. So this is called viewport rendering. And what it does is it allows us to render directly what the viewport shows us. So anything we can see in the viewport, we can render out as an animation or as a single image file. That's all controlled via our render options, just like it would for using Blender's native render system. So you can change the size, you can change the output type, and all that kind of stuff in here. And instead of going to render image or render animation using Blender Internal or Cycles, you can just click these buttons down here and they will do the same thing. Now, limitations with this are pretty obvious. There's certain things, like certain shaders and certain features that Blender's viewport doesn't support. So if you're doing, things like bump mapping, certain like lighting setups and stuff, they're not going to work with the viewport render. You're going to have to do a workflow that supports basically the final output is going to be visible in your viewport. So for me, since I do low poly, I'm trying to do like the PS2 kind of aesthetic, that works for me. Pretty much everything that I want to accomplish, I can see directly in the viewport. The only other limitation is that anything that's like UI centric is going to be visible. So if I have this monkey head selected and I hit that same thing again, you're going to see the selection shows up there. So what you want to do to get rid of that, if you want to go down this road, is bring up your end panel and scroll down here to, I believe it's under display, and you click only render. And now no matter what was visible, if you had armatures and parent lines and all that kind of stuff, it's only going to show what would be rendered in a scene. And then you just hit viewport render and it's going to show you just what's there. So if you're doing a simplistic style, or you're working with a low-end system and you're having a lot of trouble with rendering on your system and you don't have a render farm, you don't have access to like a cloud render farm, and you want to kind of speed things up, or even if you're working on a more complicated animation and you just want to preview something really quickly, viewport rendering is a great option. So if you want to see a complete breakdown, you can throw me $1 a month over on Patreon, get access to that and all my other tutorials. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.